Hey everybody, I'm CJ, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be guiding you through my tier list for Uprising's leaders. I know that Black Shadow already posted his video, but we are going to differ in a couple of ways here. So I'm going to take you through my thoughts. I've played all these leaders several times now. I have about 19 games under my belt, which is pretty good. Definitely good enough for a review, which will be coming at you pretty shortly. But here we're going to be talking about the leaders, which ones I think are the best, which ones I think are just okay. And just as a caveat, a lot of these leaders are very close together in power level. So even though we have an S, A, B, C, and D tier, I don't really think that there are any outright like best leaders. There's nothing like Tessia or the Baron or Ilban from Ix and Immo. There's no leader that is that high above everyone else. But I think there are some good standout leaders. Also, there are some leaders here that are variable. Leaders that seem to rely on the Imperium row or a specific thing going right for you in the game early on. And those leaders are going to be a little bit lower on the list, but they can be higher depending on if things go right for you. A little bit like Armandi Kaz in Ix and Immortality. So let's get right into it. All right, so my first leader that I'm going to post here, the B tier, I think that is the weakest leader, the weakest leader in the game, is actually going to be Jessica. I find her extremely difficult to play. There's a couple of reasons for that. So her ability is when you use your ring, her ring ability is very interesting. You can pay a spice to get an intrigue, and then you can put one of your troops on the Bene Gesserit space to get a memory. And a memory is a little token. So when you go to the Bene Gesserit space, that's her passive, you get to draw a number of cards equal to the number of memories you have, and then you get to flip your ID. And when you flip your ID, flip your leader card over, you have a new passive ability and you have a new ring ability. Your new ring ability is simply pay one spice to get one water, which is okay. Not anything to write home about, but water is precious at Dune, and so it's important to have water. Her passive now, though, is incredible. Her passive is every time you go to the Fremen or Bene Gesserit spaces on the board, you may pay a water and duplicate the effect of that space. That means if you're going to Fremkit, you get to draw 2 cards. If you go to Desert Tactics, you get to get 2 troops and trash 2 cards. If you go to Secrets, it's 2 intrigue cards. And if there are multiple people who have 4 intrigues out there, you get to steal from those people too. Don't forget that. And if you go to Espionage, you can get 2 spies and draw 2 cards. That's probably my favorite space for her. Now, I also really want to state that I like Jessica a lot. She's probably my second favorite leader in the game right now. And I think that she's powerful sometimes. My problem with Jessica is that, and this might be a me problem, so this will probably change over time when I have more plays with Jessica, once we've kind of figured her out a little bit. There's a little weird trickery in your first turn of the game. You need to get spice. You want to hit up water. So you kind of want to do a bunch of different things, but these are high priority targets for other players. Going to get deliver supplies from the Spacing Guild for 1 water is an important space. Okay, water is hard to come by. Her other good spaces are Imperial Basin and Haga Basin. She really wants spice so she can set up that flip and the duplication. So she wants spice and water. You can just flip her for no effect right away by just going to like Secrets or something like that. That's fine. It doesn't seem like the best use of her power though. I've tried playing her a couple of ways where you kind of nurse the ring and get a couple of memories out there, like 2 memories, then flip and draw a bunch of cards. Like you could draw 2 from your memories. Like say you got a spy on the Bene Gesserit space, you can draw 1 from that. You can draw 2 more cards from the Espionage space and place 2 spies. That's a massive turn. The problem is if you don't have big cards to draw into to make that worthwhile, then there's really not a lot you are doing with your deck other than drawing cards and hoping to buy something. That doesn't actually get you ahead. So her passive and then her flip ability are very good, but they seem to be kind of at odds with the general flow of Dune Imperium. So anyway, I like Jessica a lot. I think she will rise over time, but right now she's my weakest leader because I think she is one of the more tricky leaders to play. Another thing to note about her is that because Solari in the early game is so important, and that's the general gist, you want to get a lot of Solari, you can get cut off if you're trying to play your own game and do the Jessica thing. I think the best way to play her is just like a normal leader, just trying to get Solari, get your Swordmaster early. And once you've done that, kind of focus on harvesting spice and then flipping for a big turn. Hopefully you get a Spice Must Flow or some big payoff card like Steersman or something like that. But she can do those things. It's just going to have to align. All the things are going to have to come together. All right, my next leader, my next B tier leader is going to be the Emperor. And the Emperor, very interesting leader. He has a ring ability, which is incredibly strong. He gets 1 Solari and 1 troop, or he can pay 3 Solari to get an influence bump with a faction. The downside of that ring is that he may not deploy any troops to conflict that turn. So, I like him a lot. He also has a passive, which is kind of like whatever. He gets to set aside the Sardaukar contracts and then like acquire them. He's the only one who can acquire them. That's kind of whatever. That's not very strong. It's just a fine ability that, you know, eventually you'll hit Sardaukar, get 2 cards, get an extra action. That's fine. But it takes 2 actions to go collect those contracts anyway. I think you're just better off hitting other contracts, the Arakeen or refinery contracts, or those ones that give you water and cards and things like that in Solari. You really want those. Like if one of those contracts for the Sardaukar actually gave like Solari, I think he might be like A or S tier. But because you can't plan to actually increase your economy with his contract, you can't use them to create an economy engine. You just use it for an action engine, which could be economy, but it's not always. He's just a little weird. His ring can get you in trouble, and I've seen this happen. Not just I've done it, but I've seen other players do it too, where you're like, oh, I've got my ring for access to like a desert space. Like, yes, I'm going to be able to contribute to this conflict. Nope. Pause. You can't do that. His ring doesn't let you do that. And so you sit with this ring in hand going, how do I do this? How do I get in the conflict? I want to get the troop. I want the Solari too, maybe, or I want the bump, but I don't have a lot of other access cards, and it messes you up a lot because it's a decent access card, your ring, right? So I find him to be also kind of going against the grain of what most of Dune Imperium wants you to do. Obviously, he rewards you if you play him well and plan him well, but I think he's also at the behest of other players and what they are doing. You can get cut off of conflict very easily. You might not get to Spacing Guild. Like, there's a lot of things that you really want to hit that smuggling space. You want the 2 bumps on the Spacing Guild to get that smuggling space. Smuggling. The shipping space that lets you pay 3 spice for 5 Solari and an influence bump. That's his best space in the game. Like, if you can get that and you can start hitting that a lot, I think he has a good game. But he just doesn't flow very well with what Dune does, and I think that's his problem. He's thematic and very cool. I think he could also rise if we figure out a way to best use his Sardaukar contracts. I think the way to do it is simply to take the one that gives you a recall an agent and leave the other one. Like, I don't know if you ever need the other one. I mean, hitting both of them is fine, but I'm not really sure the efficiency of those contracts. A lot of people don't like them. I've talked to. Okay, so that's the Emperor. I like him a lot. I think his design is really cool, but he is tricky to play, and he can, like, you can run into Emperor problems where you just go, I don't have an access card that gets me into this conflict. I think I lose. You know, that can happen. All right. The next leader who is going to be sitting in B tier, and keep in mind that these leaders are variable. We might see them move up here. The next one I think is actually Stabban. A lot of people might be surprised at this. I think Stabban has the best ring in the game. His ring gives you 1 spy, and spies are very powerful in Uprising. He also says if you put that spy on a Landsred space, you can pay 1 spice for 3 Solari. And if you put it on a faction space, or if you put it on a faction space, you can pay, I think it's 2 Solari for 1 intrigue. So he has a lot of flexibility. He's trading resources back and forth, which makes him, like, if you like to pivot, you like tactical play, I think he has a lot of interesting tactical play. His passive says that if another player goes to a desert space where you have a spy, you get a spice. So parking your spy on Haga Basin or Imperial Basin, even Deep Desert, but probably Haga Basin, is massive for Stabban, and it is essential for his game plan. Now, the downside to this leader is he doesn't start with a diplomacy in his deck. He is very unique in that regard. He only has the Seek Allies, which is trashed after its first use. So then he is left without any faction access for the rest of the game. Now, this is why I have him in B tier. And a lot of people say, well, yeah, but the row could have a lot of good cards for him. Yes, they can. So sometimes I'd say he's like A, high A tier, or mid A tier. But most of the time, you'll get your cards poached from you. Maybe you'll get 1 access card. They'll be up to 2 access cards, maybe 3. You'll have 1 access card, and you'll really suffer. But I'd say that if you can play him well, he can be an A tier leader. And this is one of these 3 leaders right here. These are the highest variability, the highest variety of plays, and the most different styles of play that we've seen in Dune Imperium. They change the way you have to think about the game, and in a good way, and in a very fascinating and fun way. And I think that they're great. But at the moment, I think that they are very complex to just jump into and play. They have variety of problems associated with the Imperium row, or even what players do for their first actions. So like positioning is very important for Stabban. If he wants to get a good card, he needs to be position 1 or 2 to get that first buy, for instance. Jessica, same kind of way. You want some cards that give you water and spice. You want drip economy. There aren't a lot of spice drip economy cards in the game, but there are some water drip economy cards in the game. So I think that these 3 leaders in my B tier are, because they have high upside, but they also can fall flat. And I've seen it happen several times with very good players piloting like Emperor, piloting Stabban, and just saying, I just didn't have a good Emperor game. I just didn't have a good Stabban game. Well, for me, that leaves them squarely in the B tier. All right, our A tier leaders, they seem to be going much more closely or in the direction of what Dune Imperium is pushing you to do, meaning they're easier to play, they're a little more straightforward, and they harness some of the strengths of their rings and their passives to a way that flows well, and it works well. You don't have to struggle against them. Okay, so my low A tier here is Irulan. I think Irulan is a very interesting leader. I think her passive is middling, but I think that her ring is interesting. Now, hear me out. So a lot of people say, look, Irulan, she's so weird. Her playstyle is so weird, and she is a little dependent on the row. Here's why she's not a B tier. Irulan's ring says, when you play it, you may trash a card from your hand. If it has a cost associated with it, so it's a card you bought during the game, you also get 2 spice, which is pretty good. So which means that if you been buying Spice Must Flows, you play your ring, trash a Spice Must Flow from your hand, you get 2 spice instead of the 1. Cool. I mean, that's great. Unless you're trying to get 2 Spice Must Flow for that endgame card, this is just a better thing to do. You can acquire also this 1 cost card from the Imperium row instead of trashing a card. So those are your 2 options with your ring. It's a pretty complex thing. So you want to have like 1 costers in the row most of the time, sometime. I think that that's the trick here with Irulan, and why I don't think she is quite like higher tier, high A or low S or something like that, or even high B. She has this trash effect that's really strong, kind of like Ekaz. She plays a little like Ekaz, but she also has this ability to snipe cards from the row and then reveal them, right? Because you could reveal them or play them and get an effect from them. So like extra sword, extra troop. here, there, something like that. Extra persuasion. Those things can matter for her. And that's kind of cool. I think that it's interesting, especially if you get a persuasion card. You got one persuasion card. It replaced her ring's persuasion, so you stay even. So I think that she's pretty interesting in that way. Now, the reason she's an A tier is because her ability to trash her cards fast means that she is a more efficient ECAS. There is a trash space on the board that costs 1 water, and you are equipped with 1 water at the beginning of the game. You can immediately go there. It's called Desert Tactics. Get a troop, get a trash. Trash that card, whatever it is, probably a dagger. Play your ring, trash something else from your hand. You're down 2 cards you don't need. Buy a Prepare the Way, which will replace your blues and greens. Like, you're immediately making your deck better from round 1. Not only are you making it better, you're making it leaner. So I think that her ability to snowball reminds me of Ikaz's ability, and Ikaz kind of like fell into like the B tier by the end of Immortality's tournament play, but I'd say that she's slightly better because of her ability to get spice. Okay, that's what makes her really interesting. Her passive is nothing to write home about. It's when you get to the second space, the second level of the Emperor, you get an intrigue. Great. Intrigues are great. We love them. If you somehow drop and then go back up, you'll get another intrigue. Cool. I mean, that's fine. But that's nothing to write home about. A free intrigue, however, is nice. Is it better than 2 spice? I don't know. I don't think so, but it might be. So Irulan, low A tier. She could be high B tier. This is debatable. My next leader that's going to be in A tier is going to be Matuli. Get him up. Come here. Let's fix it. Amber, Lady Amber Matuli is just a simple, straightforward leader with an interesting mechanism. So her passive effect is during reveal, you may retreat 1 of your troops. You might say, well, why do I want to do that? Don't I want to win combats? Yeah, you do, and you will. You'll pressure people into overcommitting. Now, keep in mind, in Uprising, the second place rewards for conflicts are better in most cases, excuse me, than the first places, which means that you're going to be getting more value by pressuring someone to say, you put in, let's say 3 troops. You're probably going to win that conflict. If somebody commits 4, you just retreat 1 and no one else went in because they're worried about losing 3 troops to you. You retreat 1 troop, you get your reward. That's fine. You can also just throw 2 in. Then someone has to commit 3 troops to beat you. You retreat 1, a cheap conflict you have. Like, Amber can do that. She plays mind games with people. And I think because of that, she is one of the better leaders to play in the 4th position, or the 1st position, 1st or 4th. In the first round of the game, 4th position, amazing. Obviously, you're going to have a great round. You can just throw 1 troop in. People have to commit, or 2 troops, sorry. People have to commit. You can retreat 1. No problem. Or you can just keep your 2 in there. That's fine. You have options during reveal. And because you're going to go last, you get to make that choice with full knowledge of what everyone is doing. So for that, I think she's really interesting. Round 2, if you're the 1st position, you're going to be the 4th position. And so if you went 1st in the game, that is, you will be 4th in the 2nd round. And so you'll have the same option. And 2nd round is a little more interesting because now you know what people are doing. People may have committed a little bit too much for that first conflict, and now you're just ready to like take these combats down pretty cheaply. So I think she's very interesting because of that. Her ring is very simple, and I like this idea. I mean, I like simple rings because I don't really want to like, honestly, this is one of the reasons I have the B tier leaders. They have the complex rings. I like them. I think Stabban, his ring is so good. Not that complicated, but I think that it's nice to have some leaders that you can just kind of brain dead. I just want resources. Throw down her ring, get a Solari. If you have an alliance, get a spice. It's uncomplicated in a way that is nice, especially with the other leaders in this game. They have a lot of things going on. So I think she's just great. I think she's fine. She has a really cheap and easy pathway to 2nd round Swordmaster. A lot of leaders do, but she does, and her ring is an essential part of that. All right, my next leader, my next A tier leader is good old Feyd-Rautha. Feyd-Rautha. Oh boy, do I love Feyd-Rautha. Probably my like most played leader. I think I've played him like six times now. Love Feyd-Rautha. Here's what I think is interesting about Feyd-Rautha. He's also comparable to Matuli in a lot of ways. Let's start with his passive ability. His passive ability, like Matuli's, is a reveal effect. When you reveal your cards during a reveal turn, you can choose to remove a spy from the board, your spy, and get 2 daggers, two swords to conflict. That's great. It's like having a permanent way to play an intrigue card and pressure people into situations that they don't want to be in. This can easily win most conflicts. It means that he has a very strong spy game. The only other leader that we've seen so far who has a strong spy game is Stabban. He has the best spy game, but he has other problems, downsides. Feyd, on the other hand, has a strong combat and spy game, which makes him formidable. So here's what his ring does. His ring has a little track, kind of like the Immortality board, the Tleilaxu board from Immortality. And you start in one spot, and then when you play your ring, you move it and take the reward. Then you move it and take the reward, then you move it, take the reward. You really only have 2 choices during this time. It's very simple. You either go up and you pay a Solari and get a trash, or you go down and get a spy. I don't think I've ever seen anyone go up yet, but getting the spy for free is bueno. The next space is just a trash effect. Great, trash a card. And then the following space, the one where you have another choice, is to either go up to get another trash or to go down and get another spy. Now, the spies are what I usually do. I really like playing a spy game with Feyd. It's really fun. I think the spy mechanism is my favorite thing about Uprising. More on that in another video, but that makes him so fun and so interesting. The cards that rely on spies coming back off the board, that it plays really well with Feyd. So I like him for that. At the end, you get another space. You go down as well. You get like 2 spies, and then you get a spy and a troop, which is like a consolation prize. You get another spy. You get a troop. I don't know if troops, like 1 troop, it's like okay, but you know, if you get to the end, you've played your ring 5 times or whatever, you get those things. He's easy. That's what he does. So why is he an A tier? Well, he's very easy to play. His effects are strong. I think spies are good, and so I think he's slightly better than Matuli. He's like Matuli in that he plays off of the reveal, right? She plays off the reveal. She's retreating. He's playing off the reveal. He's gaining troops. It's kind of like the opposite, which makes him kind of cool. And I think that they are nice counters to each other. So Feyd-Rautha, really like Feyd. Going to play him a lot. I see him being pretty strong in tournaments. I don't know if he's quite up there. He's close, but not quite there. My next leader is going to be what most people would think is the strongest leader in the game. And Margo Fenring might be the strongest leader in the game. In fact, I think that there's more an argument that she is an S tier than an A tier. So she's kind of like A+, let's say. She probably will go up over time. Why is Margo so strong? She's a very simple leader. Her ring says, when you play it, you get to put a spy on a city or blue circle space. That's it. That's it. Why is that so good? Well, spies are powerful. They let you draw cards. They let you infiltrate. The blue city spaces are important for getting Swordmaster, for getting Spice Must Flows, and for just general flexibility, drawing cards, getting troops, things like that. She loves putting her spy on Arakeen. She loves having a spy on Arakeen because when she goes to Arakeen and no one has gone there, she gets to draw 2 cards. She gets to put the spy back with her ring. Hopefully you do this with the ring. You get a troop and you're just starting to churn through your deck faster and faster and faster. A little bit like how Jessica does, but without the commitment. You don't have a whole lot of things to worry about. The other thing that makes her very strong is that the spy cards in this game work very, very well with her ring because it's always a spy. It's always a spy, whereas Feyd's is sometimes a spy. Not as good, I think. Sometimes a spy, but still good. But hers is always a spy. You can always rely on it. You can commit to a spy strategy. You can grab those cards that need, like in high places, that need you to retrieve 2 spies to get 3 extra persuasion to buy Spice Must Flow. Oh my god, that card is nuts. She is amazing for this reason. The combos you can do also, if you get a spy on the Bene Gesserit space, she's very, very strong if you can get that spy on the Bene Gesserit. Her passive is when you get to the second space on the Bene Gesserit, you get 2 spice. That's great. That is a trip to Haga Basin. Okay. That is better, in my opinion, than Irulan's 1 intrigue card. Because a trip to the tech negotiation space, I can't remember what it's called, the one that gives you 1 persuasion and 1 intrigue, or secrets, is not as good as going to Haga Basin. It's just not. Getting spice is so much more valuable. It's hard to get spice. People like to block that space because they want worms. Stabban's in the game. He just wants to like make you go there. So people are going there. You know, they're giving him spice, and you're just blocked all the time. It's hard to get enough spice. So it's nice. It's a nice effect. It's not game breaking, but it's always a positive effect. All of these leaders have positive effects that are kind of unrestricted. Say Irulan on the bottom end, she has a cost of trashing a card from her hand to get 2 spice. Would I rather trash a card from my hand to get 2 spice, or just get passive 2 spice once? Well, considering you might only use her ring once per game to do that, this effect is stronger. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me. So for that reason, I think that Margo Fenring is high A, probably low S tier. She's very good. Now, again, as I mentioned, all these leaders are pretty close together. Uprising is very well balanced. Uprising has a lot of tactics, a lot of play, and a lot of counterplay. And because of that, I can't really say that these guys aren't going to move around. I've already mentioned that. So let's get to our S tier and talk about why they are S tier. Now, my first S tier is going to be Gurney Halleck. Gurney Halleck. I think Gurney Halleck is just great. Like, there's no downside to Gurney Halleck. He's just, look at him. He's just awesome. When you're Thanos, you can do whatever you want. This is just the epitome of upside. His ring gives you a troop. He's like the Beast from base game, right? But a little bit worse. He doesn't get 2 troops if he has an alliance. That's okay. Beast's passive was get a Solari and a Spice at the start of the game, which I think is very strong and would be strong in Uprising. He would probably be S tier. But Gurney's effect is also really interesting because buying Spice Must Flow in Uprising is so important. It's so important. And cutting corners is also so important. What Gurney's ability lets you do is focus on combat and just get a Spice Must Flow. So his extra persuasion really matters. I can't tell you how many times, I can tell you. About 5 times I played this game where I wasn't Gurney and I was hitting 8 persuasion because I just was 1 action behind. His ability to throw troops in and get a persuasion is like that tech from Ix that just gave you 1 persuasion for no reason, right? Like, it's just so good. That's why people love those cards. That's why Ix and MO players really loved those intrigue cards that gave like 1 persuasion or 2 persuasion, because they let you cut corners. So Gurney lets you do that. He's all upside. He's no negativity. He doesn't have a cost associated with anything he does besides the fact that you have to throw troops in the conflict. He's just good. And finally, and thematically appropriately, Paul Muad'Dib. Paul Muad'Dib is the best leader in the game at this moment, in my opinion. Why is Paul so good? Well, first of all, his ring is the same as it always was. He draws a card. That's fine. I mean, it's very similar to if you're Margo Fenring and you're like putting a spy down and pulling your spy off to draw an extra card. It's very much like that, except you don't have to commit a spy. So he doesn't have to worry about that. 2, his passive effect is game winning. It's won several games. I've seen it win games it shouldn't have won. Basically, the way it works is if you have a worm in the conflict, when you reveal, you draw an intrigue card. That's how it works. And that top decking is going to win you games where you're like, I'm just a couple of daggers from winning this conflict. Whoop, there it is. Haha, I win. That will happen to people. It has happened during the pre-release. It happened twice during the pre-release to me. Not while I was playing Paul. I wasn't playing Paul. I was the other side of the coin. I was playing Feyd at the time and lost to a Paul player twice from a top deck. Feels bad, man. But guess what? That makes him really good. So play Paul. Also, Paul's got the best worm game in the game by far. The reason he's got the best worm game, he's rewarded for it. No one else is rewarded for having worms in the conflict. So you're incentivized to do that. Because of that, Paul can get blocked from worm spaces if he's not careful. If everybody goes to a Fremen space early, if you don't get that 1/2 cost cheaty card that lets you go to Siege Tabor out of order, like I'll put it right up there, down here, like that card is bonkers and it's really good if you're Paul, because you can just go get your Maker's Hook and not have to worry about the Fremen. In any case, because Paul can just win games that he has, like, that no one else can win, because he can draw intrigue cards just during conflict, he'll probably generate 2 to 4, maybe 5 intrigue cards. 5 is like pushing it, but probably like 2 to 4 intrigue cards during a game for free. That's a lot. That's better than the Baron. Okay, the Baron had to play his ring and he had to put a spice or a Solari down. Like, you know, Jessica has to pay a spice to get an intrigue, you know. Irulan has to get 2 levels on the Bene Gesserit to do that. You know, Stabban has to pay 2 to Solari, but Paul does it for free. And that's what makes him so good. All right, let me know what you guys think. If this is completely off base, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, post your lists down below. Give us a like and subscribe. And if you want to follow us, you can do so on Patreon at patreon.com/hiddenassets. And I will see you all later. Have a great day. Take care.